Now we're going to jump into the requirements portion of the SDLC. We're going to talk through application feature requirements first. So very high level, what do we mean by a feature, right? So when we go to outline our features, we want to know what will our software application do to benefit users? What components will it have? What can it do that will help whoever it is that it affects or is using it? Now, we want to jump into requirements, right? And when we say requirements, what we mean is that these are the grouping of features that the software is going to have in order to meet certain phases of our application development. So I'll describe in a second what I mean by that, but essentially there are different types of requirements that you can have. There are core requirements, so these are things that are required for application launch. So if I want to make an application that someone has to log into and it performs a series of actions, having that login page is a requirement. Otherwise, there's no way that I can control who is using the application if we don't have any way of logging them in, right? So there are certain things that that are required. If you want to make the next Microsoft Excel, you need to have some type of application, whether it's on the web or installed to somebody's desktop, that has a spreadsheet interface, right? It has to allow calculations inside of there. These are things that are core to the application. Now, what calculations it allows you to do can be enhanced over time. So if you think of Microsoft Excel 98 versus Excel 2021, there are a lot of changes that are in there. The number of rows and columns that you can have are different. The different functions you can perform on there is a greater list now than it was back in Excel 98, right? So just know that what you define as the requirements of your application today isn't going to be the same thing as what you define as the applications 5 years from now. It's okay for that to evolve, but you need to start somewhere, and you need to start somewhere with it documented. That way, what is it I'm planning to have now? Maybe what are some things that I would like to have? It's not needed in order for the application launch, but it's something that would be great if we have it. That would be considered a nice to have requirement, where it can be something that, hey, I'm planning 6 months until our first release. Maybe it takes 4 months or 5 months to go and build the application, and you have a month or two left over, and you say, all right, let's build in some of these nice to haves, and include those as part of the application launch. But if it takes you the full 6 months to build the application and you don't have time to get to those nice to haves, your application isn't gonna fail or be unusable if you don't have them. Then you can also map out future requirements or enhancements to the application where they may not be core requirements. They may not be things that you have to have in order to launch the product, but they might be nice to haves, or they might be things where you say, what, today I don't think I need this feature. Maybe in a year, I think if I don't have that feature, we're going to be behind all of our different competitors. So this is going to become a core requirement in a year. Let's make sure we document it today so that it doesn't fall off of our radar, and we can always build it in a subsequent phase. And we'll talk about phases in a second over here. You want to be very, very detailed as you possibly can with every single requirement that you document. So a very simple example is, I want to build a desktop application. Okay, great. Well, is it going to be a Windows desktop application? Is it going to be Linux? Is it going to be a Mac desktop application? Is it going to be cross-platform, which means that you can just develop it once and it'll work on all three types of machines. You might say, hey, I want a web application. Okay, great. Let's build a web application, but is it going to work in Chrome? Is it going to work in Firefox? Is it going to work in Safari or Edge or other browsers? Or is this going to be something that, works, on a different type of browser, or will be across all modern browsers? Those are things that you need to specify, because how it gets coded and the amount of time that it takes to develop is going to change depending on what platforms you want to support. And again, with mobile applications, I want an app for the phone. Is it going to be an iOS or iPhone application? Is it going to be an Android application? Will it be cross-platform, etc. over there? So requirements, they're a key part of your application journey. So this is going to be used to determine what's referred to as the scope of the project. And the scope, what I mean by scope, is what design, build, test, and deployment activities are included in this phase or round of development. So as you go through, the idea here is to log as much stuff as you possibly can. And then we're going to do a review of the requirements where we're going to go through, well, is this needed now? Is this a core requirement? What is my timeline looking for? And when we have the sense of our timeline, like how many of these features can we fit into this particular release? So, make sure when your requirements are documented, you're as specific as possible. Where possible, it's good to provide examples or mock-ups of what you're looking for. So some of my, most successful software that I have are things that, like, I opened up an Excel spreadsheet. I, made what I wanted to make in there in terms of, the logic and what it's going to look like. I drew different boxes and stuff in there. I put the calculation logic in there. And then I went and posted that on Upwork, and I was able to save a lot of money and have an application built for as little as, like, I think it was $50 or $100 to go and turn what was in Excel into an application. And now, depending on what you're looking to build, you're not necessarily going to get something for as little as $50 or $100 to have it built out. But if you could save hundreds or thousands of dollars on your application just by doing a little bit of the legwork yourself and showing this is what I'm looking for, that's going to reduce a lot of the chance for error and misinterpretation of what a developer is going to think you want versus what you actually want, right? And make sure you do some quick Google searches for particular features or libraries, because while your software itself may not be something that's existing on the internet today, for purchase or for free, there are a bunch of open source and free libraries out there that can be plugged into different application programming languages, and maybe they can get you part of what you want, and you don't have to have as much stuff developed because you're going from a starting point. Or it could be something that you found this commercial library for. It costs too much money for you to buy it, but you can show a developer, like, I want this, just build it for me in a different way, and hopefully it'll cost much less to replicate versus going in and pulling something that's already available. So just to give you an example of something that a lot of us take for granted when we're putting together requirements is when you say, hey, application should have a login screen. Okay, great. Well, how do you log into the application? This isn't something that's specified in the document, but should be. Are you going to allow somebody to log in with Google or Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or a different social application? Are you going to support single sign-on, where a bunch of enterprise applications allow you to store your credentials in a centralized application? log into that one application, and it'll automatically log you in everywhere that that's needed. Things like, should the users have the ability to change their password or register for the application? Are you going to set them up with a username and password and they can't change it? Things like emails. Should you have automatic emails sent out when they register for a new account or change their password? If so, what account is going to go and send those emails? Is it a personalized Gmail account for the software? Is it an email address from a domain that you have? All these different questions that I brought up are all things that should be logged in your requirements document. Now, we made available to you a sample requirements template. Feel free to use that as a starting point. Feel free to modify it to meet your needs. But the important thing is that all your requirements are written somewhere. When you go to have a developer or agency build this out, you say, okay, we've delivered your project, and you say, this isn't what I was looking for, and they say, yes, it is. This is what you told me you needed. Now you have a document you could point back to and say, all right, I sent you this document with these 75 items. Please show me where each of these features exists. That'll help guide your conversation with them so that they could say, oh yeah, you're right, this feature is missing, or this feature is here and here's exactly where to get to it. The more detail you put in, the better quality of the application that you're going to get out.